This is probably one of the biggest questions I get. Should I go dual or single? And that is a very important question if you plan on towing a trailer. Now, we're going to answer that question in a second, but really quickly, I got to give a shout out to Jerry Seiner, Chevrolet, for allowing me to do this video. They do have these trucks in stock. They have a dually here. You definitely want to check that truck out. It's spec'd perfectly. Let's go ahead and get to the first point. Now, most people that are asking this question, they're asking it because of one reason and one reason only. Number one, suspension. Number two, size. Obviously you have those wider hips out back. And lastly, cost. Let's discuss the suspension first. Most people know this. If you get a dually, you're going to have a harsher riding truck. Now, there's a few factors to that we're going to discuss. Number one is obviously the front suspension. So when you get a dually, this does have a higher gross axle weight rating standard compared to a single rear wheel. So it's going to be 5,600 pound gross axle versus 6,000. I don't know what the spring rate is. I don't know if they change it on these trucks, but they don't give that information online. I don't know how to answer that question, but I'm assuming it's going to be a little bit stiffer because it has a higher rating, right? Now, out back, let's take a look at the suspension, starting with the single rear wheel. Here is the leaf pack. You guys can see that bottom leaf here is a little bit different. That's going to be your helper spring, and then you have these 4 leaves here, and then they give you 2 overloads right here. On this side of the house, you guys will see, they actually set the suspension up slightly different. You still have a helper spring at the bottom, and then you have those 4 leaves in the main pack, and then you have 3 overloads. So they basically take a leaf from here and put it on your overloads there. Now, with that being said, you probably can tell that the overloads are a little bit closer to the bump stops, and that's a good thing because that's going to allow the truck to ride a little bit better when you add weight to it. But when these trucks are unloaded, the dually's always going to ride a little bit harsher, not just because of the suspension either, it's because of these extra tires too. So having 4 tires back here unloaded is a harsher ride. Lastly, the axle rating out back on the dually is going to be a lot higher compared to the single rear wheel. Now, I'll show that to you guys here in a second, but let's talk about the second point. The second point is this, the size. Now, when you think about the length, these are both 8-foot bed trucks, so they're about the same length, but they're not the same width. So when it comes down to parking in a parking space, right, it's a little bit harder to find something for a dually because this thing is so much wider, and for some people it might be really hard to park. Now, I will make the argument, I don't think the width is the problem because this truck does have the 360 cameras, which I definitely recommend if you're new to dually, but having an 8-foot bed is still hard to park. So most guys looking to get a single rear wheel truck, I would venture to say 70% of them are probably looking for a standard bed, especially for GM trucks because they have the largest bed in the segment. So I can understand why some of those guys would prefer a standard bed over a long bed. So when you think about parking these trucks, it is more cumbersome and you cannot get a standard bed on a dually. So when you think about the size of this truck, cleaning it's going to be tougher, and most car washes will not take a dually. And for some people like myself, I like wash my cars once a month now because I just don't care, and I have a garage, so parking in the garage is very important to me. And if you're looking at a dually or even a long bed truck, it's really hard to find houses, especially in the suburbs, where they have 25-foot garages. Now, you don't need that big of a garage. You can get it away with a 24-foot, but it's going to be really, really tight. I would say 30 by 30 is the perfect size for a garage if you're going to get a dually. So when it comes down to the sheer size of this thing and the wide hips, it's just harder to live with day to day. And most guys and girls who buy these trucks, they're not towing all the time. So why get a truck that you're only going to be towing with maybe 3 times a year when you can just get a single rear wheel? Let's talk about that. I almost forgot the pricing. So if you get a dually, it is $1,400 more. So an LTZ price point, you guys see $75,085 versus for the dually is going to be $76,485. And you have to consider tires. So if you're getting 4 tires for an 18-inch wheel, this is what you will pay, $1,484. Also, for the dually, it's going to be $1,654. So the tires are a little bit cheaper, but you have to buy 2 more extra tires. And tire rotations are going to be more expensive because you have to dismount the tires, you know, to the tires on the front if you want to rotate them. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna drive over to the RV dealer because I want to show you guys something really quickly to kind of drive my point home. I probably get in a year maybe 5 or 6 emails about guys getting single rear wheel trucks, looking at toy haulers. And one thing I want to discuss about toy haulers is they're really heavy on the front end because they're assuming most people using those trailers are looking to potentially get a big toy in the garage, right? Or a motorcycle. So that will take a little bit of weight off of the pin, but it may not be enough in some cases when the trailer's like, well, you'll see. Let's just go check out what they have. Here we are. We just got the Paris RV. Let's go ahead and check out some of their inventory. Anytime I see a triple axle toy hauler like this one, this is an Alliance Valor. This is 100% dually territory. And the reason why is because the hitch weight on these trailers is so high. And the way that they build them is built to have a heavy tongue weight. Because if you're planning on putting a heavy toy back here, that may take 300 to 400 pounds off the pin. And that's assuming it's over 1,000 pounds. Here are the numbers on this trailer. So gross vehicle weight rating is going to be 20,000 pounds, and then the unloaded is 15,162 pounds, almost 5,000 pounds of capacity that you can add to this trailer. Now those numbers don't include propane, batteries, no fuel for that generator. So once you add all that to it, especially if you have a lot of solar, I mean, you could make this pin weight a lot heavier than what you see online, which I'll show you guys here. I wanted to show you guys this one because this has a full body paint, but this one is pretty much the exact same trailer without that. 43 V13, so I'm thinking 13-foot garage is what that means. And yeah, Alliance is one of my favorite RVs. I love the fact that they give you a dinette. I hate when they just give you that big couch and the tables that go there so you can eat. I like that formal type seating area like this to hang out with my family. Nice spot there for a coffee cup maybe. And here's your garage. So this is definitely big enough for a 2-seater side by side, right? You can add a bunch of accessories and get the thing up to like almost 2,000 pounds in some cases. You can put your washer and dryer back here. They do have a full-size bathroom too. It's nice. Probably wash your dog back here too. Sink on the side. Vanity, tall ceilings. But yeah, this is probably big enough to put a side by side or even 2 Harley Davidsons back there, and that will take weight off the pin weight, right? Kitchen layout is decent. You have a lot of countertop around your stove. Kitchen sinks on the island. Most likely a 12-volt refrigerator, and 2 entrances for the bathroom, for the master bedroom. King size bed. Now something that Alliance does for their toy haulers is they'll give you 2 places to add, yep, right there, washer and dryer. So you can do it in the front or rear. The nice thing about having a dually, and you guys will see this in a second, is the type of payload that they give you, okay? So it's really nice, 2 spots. Let's go ahead and check out some of the numbers with this single rear wheel, and then I'll show you guys the numbers for the dually too. So here are the numbers on the door. So you guys can see the axle ratings, and then the gross vehicle weight rating is going to be 12,250. They do increase this by 150 pounds because of the long bed. And then this truck has 3,829 pounds of payload capacity, and then 20,000 pound conventional towing, and then 21,510 for Gooseneck. This was a previous model year RV, so it's not on Alliance's website, but they still have all the specs. So the advertised dry weight was 15,070 pounds. So the one in the video you just saw has some extra options on it when they got weighed. And then you guys can see here, this is a dry hitch weight, so just keep that in mind. This trailer showed to be about $142,000 rounded off. And one thing to keep in mind when you're looking at these big toy haulers, you need to know where the freshwater tank is, because sometimes they put those in the front. That way if you do have a heavy toy in the back, you don't take too much weight off of the pin. So 9 times out of 10 those tanks are in the front of the trailer, which means you're going to have more hitch weight if you travel with full tanks. So now you guys know the numbers for the truck and the trailer. So this is the dry hitch weight, so just keep that in mind for a second. But this is the actual payload with all the options, everything. This is it. With that being said, when you take this number subtracted from the hitch weight, which is dry, that only leaves you with 845 pounds for passengers and cargo. So this is going to vary obviously. So let's just say your passengers are 500 pounds, okay? Cargo, fifth wheel hitch is typically 350 pounds. And if you plan on, carrying extra fuel, tools, things like that, let's just say 550 pounds here. So right out of the gate, you're pretty much over your payload. And that's because your new gross vehicle weight for the truck is 12,455 pounds, which puts you over the 12,250, okay? Now again, this is a dry hitch weight. So assume that the manufacturer, they used a pretty conservative number at 19.8% hitch weight. So that's what they're thinking the hitch weight would be. If you use 22%, which is still kind of conservative, I would say, the weight would be 3,335 pounds. Okay, so you're going to be over this number by a considerable amount. Now I've seen these trailers get up to like 3,800 pounds on the pin weight, and that's just based off of numbers I've seen from people who've sent me their CAT scale weigh-ins. Okay, so this is probably the worst case scenario. Now if you're using a toy, you probably could be around 3,600 pounds, but let's just use these numbers for now. We just got back and I want to show you guys the numbers on the door for the dually. So the biggest factor when you're looking at towing are a few things. So the gross axle weight rating out back is going to be 10.4. They do increase your gross vehicle weight rating, which gives you more payload capacity. So you saw what, 3,800 pounds on that truck? Well, this one has 5,200 pounds. To be exact, 5,252 pounds. Now conventional towing is going to be the same, but you guys see the gooseneck and fifth wheel, it's going to be 31,000 pounds. Gross combined weight rating is higher. And when you consider a dually for these types of trailers, 9 times out of 10 you're going to always be under. It just depends on how you travel and how you carry stuff inside the truck. If you carry a lot of heavy stuff, I mean, you can easily go over, on a dually too, but it's pretty rare to see that. Now with that being said, even with a nearly 4,000 pound hitch weight and a 800 pound cargo, you're still under the payload capacity. So that's why you get a dually. Something else you have to consider is not only is that axle rating higher, you have 10.4 versus 7,250, but think about having dual rear wheels. So you have 4 tires. So your tire capacity is going to be, for dual setup, 2,835 pounds times 4. And on this truck, it is 3,640 pounds. So if you consider a trailer has 3,000 to 4,000 pounds of pin weight, you could be potentially over the axle rating and the tires, and potentially if it's over 4,000 pounds, you'll be over the gross vehicle weight rating and the payload capacity. So yes, that's why you have to buy a dually. If you want a big trailer, buy a big enough truck to tow that trailer. So I don't know, I understand people's theories. A lot of people like the look of a single rear wheel truck, and on a dually you don't have like the sport appearance package that you can get on the single rear wheel trucks, and that's a big downfall with Chevy. I really think they're screwing themselves, because I think more people would choose to get a dually if it had painted bumpers, because you can't even get that on an LTZ. You have to go to a high country. So I understand. Now you guys saw my dually. I did mine up. I ran 37s. I painted the bumpers and all the trim, blacked it out, and I thought it was probably one of the nicest trucks I've ever owned, and it towed my trailer just like it did in stock form. I proved that in multiple videos. So if you want to get a dually, you can make it look a little bit better, but yes, it's going to cost you a lot more money. It cost me a good bit of money to do that. So hope you guys like the video. I really do think that getting a dually does not necessarily mean you're going to have a horrible ride. So maybe what I'll do is I'll follow this video up, if this truck doesn't sell, doing a drive back to back, and I'll use a standard bed truck too for my comparison. And really quickly, here are the numbers too for the dually. So with 5,000 plus pounds of payload, the trailer that I showed you guys, unless you're living full time, you should not go over that gross vehicle weight rating, or the payload basically, because if you have a toy back there, that should remove a little bit of weight. So yes, I think that a truck like this would be more than enough for that type of fifth wheel toy hauler. Later.